So good morning, everybody. It's lovely to be in Donegal. Jerry mentioned that I was trying to get here for a while, and he was very kind because I did get here. I'm in Tusla about 2.5 years now, and in February of 2020, I remember it well, on a Sunday driving to Donegal on the weekend of the counting of the last general election. And at a place all of you know better than I do, the Dry Art Roundabout, I found myself rear-ended, and thanks to the Gardaí in Donegal and lots of other people, I managed to get through that evening, but unfortunately had to cancel the rest of my visit. So it's lovely to get here and to meet not just the Tusla services, but to be here for this event, because as you know, Tusla hosts or leads the CYPSC process, but it is by no means the dominant partner, nor should it be, because of what the CYPSC concept is. I'm absolutely floored, is the only phrase I can say to you, when I see the success that you have achieved through the CYPSC construct. It's not that easy everywhere. It doesn't always work that easy, because ultimately what CYPSC is, it is about a bringing together of all of the services, all of the agencies, all of the organisations, all of the providers. And every one of them, no different to us, has their own pressures, their own demands, their own challenges to respond to. So then to come together in what appears to be taking on extra work can often be a daunting task and can often disable that type of integration. What you've clearly done is you've seen that it's not coming together to take on an additional task. It's coming together to do all of the tasks that you all do individually, and to put them into a collective, and to put that collective directly to the benefit of children and young people in Donegal. And you really have done that so successfully. I imagine for many of you, because of the sense of community, and I know the Minister mentioned Donegal's well-known history for community and community development and community participation. But I imagine many of you, you don't even stop twice to think about it. It is what you do. And that is the beautiful thing about it. It is what you do. It's not constructed, it's not formatted, it is what you do. And when you look back, and what I liked about the introduction to the plan from Jerry's introduction, when you look back at the highlights of CYPSC to date in Donegal, and having taken a bumpy start on and off over a couple of years, as many CYPSCs did when they were first established as Children's Services Committee, but all those bumpy starts and stops and committees and finding it hard to meet, you look back at the real practical actions that have been achieved already. That is one of the most assuring things about what you've done. I think there's some 46 outcomes listed in terms of work that you have done already. Some of you have participated more actively in different parts, but all of you have participated in endorsing and coming together and supporting your colleagues to achieve those outcomes. That is just an amazing thing. And if I could ask you to think about it this way, it's often very hard for organisations to think about what matters and to think about why does it matter. What I certainly know from my point of view as the CEO of a state agency responsible for the protection and well-being of children in the state, I know from many years of working with statutory bodies like local authorities and Garda Síochána and the education sector, we as statutory providers thankfully have come to learn over the last 10 years that we actually can't achieve and we can't do what it is we're charged with doing without the full integration of all of the organisations, of all of the interests, of all of the people. And so when we end up with that statutory and voluntary combination, then wonderful things are achieved. And what are those wonderful things? Well, you've seen them individually listed. Last year, Tusla received 72,000 referrals of children and young people and families. They're children that somebody was concerned about. They are not all child abuse referrals, thankfully. A substantial proportion of them are suspected abuse referrals. But an increasing number of them are categorised as what's called welfare. Over 52% of them in January of this year. That's an increase of 10% on January the previous year. Are welfare categorised concerns about children and young people. That means that somebody was concerned about that child. Somebody had some concern to say that that child was experiencing disadvantage or exclusion or challenges with school or challenges at home or challenges in their local community. And those challenges vary right across a whole spectrum of need. Well, for those 52% that we call welfare, 35,000 of them, quite a share of them here represented in the Donegal figures as well. But for those young people, there has to be something that's beyond the Child Protection Service, something that's beyond the scope of the school that they're involved in, something that's beyond the scope of the interaction they may have had with the Gardaí. There has to be something that builds the resilience of the community they live in to improve the outcomes for them. And so in saying there has to be something, somebody says, well, where is it and what is it? Well, here it is. Here it is. What you have, what you've done, what you've achieved, what you've continued to achieve. So please don't underestimate the importance. Please don't underestimate the importance of what you do. And I'd ask you this rhetorical question. I ask it many times when I talk to journalists and other people. Yes, there's lots of criticism of state services and community services. Certainly, my organisation gets its share of it, sometimes well-deserved, sometimes maybe a bit overstated. But for all of our shortcomings and challenges, we are but a part of society and a part of a social construct. And for all of those shortcomings and challenges, I do ask this question, and I ask it of you rhetorically today. Where do you think the children and young people in Donegal, who make up part of that 52% of referrals of welfare to Tusla, where do you think they'd be if you weren't here? Where do you think they would be if you didn't do what you do? Where would their families find themselves today if you didn't do what you do? The second observation I want to make about your plan is plans are often criticised because, of course, they talk about the future and people say, isn't that a great plan? Will it ever happen? Oh, I don't know about that. Geez, lads, will we ever get around to that? The wonderful thing about this plan is 2021 to 2023, it's now 2022, and we already have seen the achievements of what you've done even before you formulated this plan. So this plan isn't an aspiration for the future. This plan is based on real proven evidence of what you've achieved already. And therefore it's a plan that means for the children, for the young people out on the Inishowen Peninsula or down in South Donegal, it means that the community who serve those children and who support them in so many different ways, it means that that community, that collective community, that thing called CYPSC, is thinking about them. And so again, think about that young person today who may be wondering what life is like for them at the moment, what the challenge is like. And for them to know that you're here, that you're collectively thinking, you're collectively putting your effort together. I can't let the opportunity go by without mentioning COVID-19. For the last 2 years, society has been upended, turned around, turned on its axis for the whole world. And what did that cause us to do? Well, it caused us to be fearful, rightly. It caused us many challenges. But it also called on us to think outside of the box. Maybe to look at some of the rules and regulations we have to date and how well they serve us, how perhaps we need to change them, how perhaps we need to be flexible around them. But one of the things I do know is that it was through the organisations represented in CYPSC, individually and collectively, in Donegal and in every county in Ireland, it was through them that so many vulnerable people were reached and supported, very quietly, very discreetly. It was through them that so many on the margins of vulnerability, at that tipping point, when perhaps a family support need can become a very chaotic and crisis situation, it was through the organisations that you represent that so many of them were reached and so many of them were supported. So don't rely or rest on always just the formality. The formality of what we do is, of course, important. But behind the formality, behind the brochure, behind the plan, behind the posters, all of which are visual representations, behind all of that, it's easy for us all because we can be tired, find life hard going, and so we can become a little bit sceptical. I always encourage people to be sceptical, but I always ask people not to become cynical. And in our skepticism, we question and we question, can we do more? Can we do different? Can we do better? And yes, we can, because yes, that is what you do. And so we have to keep questioning. But in that questioning, don't underestimate the value, not of what you are going to do, but what you have done and what you are doing already. And if you stick to that and connect that to that child or that young person, wherever they are, I'm sure you all know one and many more than one, but think of one and connect it to that one. When I was driving up yesterday from having stopped in Mayo to do some work with Tusla there, and I was driving up and I heard a clip on the radio of a 14-year-old, and that 14-year-old is living in the middle of a war at the moment. And that 14-year-old's voice was recorded, and it was around their fears and their anxieties about what's happening in their native Ukraine, where they're living. They recorded it on a WhatsApp or a phone or some type of device, and it was played at the end of, I think it was Liveline yesterday. And I just thought, you know, wouldn't it be great to think that that young person has faith in the world, and that the world can perhaps give that young person faith about the support and help that might be given. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if that young person could see the world in the same way and in the same construct as the young people of Donegal can see their CYPSC, their collective community, working together for them wherever they're at. That's what makes it a pleasure, and that's what makes it lovely to be here, to see the real work. And that's what makes it a pleasure to say to you that I'm really delighted. And I spoke with the minister yesterday evening, and I know he was delighted to be able to send a message. It really is a pleasure to endorse and to officially launch, but to endorse and to support your plan, your ongoing plan, the plan that's living and breathing today, that will achieve so much more, that will add to the 46 things already achieved. And so with that, thank you to all of you. Thank you to Anne for the very kind invitation. It really is no work and a great pleasure to be here and to share that with you. And so with that, I'm delighted to officially launch the Donegal CYPSC 2021 to 2023. Thank you.